After the challenges of the past year, increasing numbers of dealers are seeing a return to growth. One of the most important drivers in automotive retail is capital. Today, we're joined by Liam Quegan, Managing Director of NextGear Capital, to discuss what funding solutions are available and, as we begin to emerge from the pandemic, what dealers can do to positively impact their bottom line. Hello, Liam, and thank you for joining us.
Hi, David. Great to be with you.
There are a number of finance options for dealers. Can you tell me what they are and the main differences between the approaches of various funders?
Absolutely. I mean, after such a challenging time, having the right amount and the right sort of capital available to you as a dealer is, I think, one of the most essential things about running a dealership well. There are a number of different options available. Obviously, through COVID, there's been access to governmental support, which has been very well leveraged by our various dealer customers and has been pivotal to helping people get through the crisis. But as we emerge, there's a number of different funding options that I think are really important to understand. And in a lot of ways, it depends on the nature of the business that you work in. Firstly, for the larger dealerships and big franchise dealers, there's access to really cheap stock funding that is where the customer service is minimal, but it's just about making sure that you can run your dealership, at low cost. But obviously, from their perspective, from the lender's perspective, they also want low risk as well. And there's not a huge amount of flexibility in the way that works. Then there are what we call captive providers. So these are captive providers whereby you would be able to fund your forecourt, but may be required to either buy vehicles from a certain auction house or alternatively reciprocate with retail lending. And then there's what I call agnostic funding, of which NextGear is one of those, where we're not connected directly to an auction house or to a bank or anything like that. All we do is provide flexible funding, allowing people to buy cars at 100% of the invoice price, or vans, or HGVs in some cases, or even now bikes, motorcycles, I should say. And what that allows you to then do is just fund your forecourt. And when you get to a position of that vehicle being sold, you set it off, you pay off your funding, and you move on and fund another vehicle. And so there's lots of different choices. But for me, as a provider of funding to lots of different dealerships, my advice is pick the right one for you, depending on what the nature of your business is.
As we come out of the pandemic and the lockdowns that we've had over the past period, what is the best advice that dealers can take to ensure their bottom line is as firm as possible?
Yeah, I think the crisis has been terrible for many reasons, but one of the things I would say to dealerships as we emerge from the crisis is to use what we've learned as a set of businesses, whether it's NextGear Capital or the dealership customers that we work with. And that's what we've learned for a couple of things is that are really, really important. A couple of things are really important. So firstly, being in control of your costs is key, whether that cost is people cost, funding cost, other kind of land-based costs or whatever, the fixed and variable costs that are within your dealership. If you manage that tightly, you can get through some really challenging times. And we've seen many dealers thrive through the COVID crisis, which, at the start of it, we were really worried about. But by managing cost first and foremost, people have done well. The second thing that I think is really important is understanding the stock profile of what you sell, and understanding how you best access that stock, whether it's from auction houses, privately sourced, using part exchanges or whatever. Being able to access that stock really, really efficiently is critical. And then the third, and for me, probably the most important thing around running a dealership tightly is make sure that you move that stock on quickly. We talk around kind of how long it takes turnaround time to sell vehicles with dealerships all the time, because quite often dealers will be holding on to stock a little bit longer than they should because they're seeking a certain price. For us, get that stock sold, turn it, get a new vehicle on the forecourt, and you can go again. And so for us, it's manage those costs, make sure you're sourcing the right stock for your dealership, and sell it as quickly as you can.
And have you been seeing, you're in contact with a lot of dealers around the country, have you been seeing that the fundamentals have changed since COVID, or are they sort of bouncing back strongly?
I mean, there's definitely a huge amount of optimism out there in the market as we've emerged from the lockdown in Q1 of this year, which is great to see. And we're starting to see really strong retail performance from a variety of sectors. I think, though, that there are a number of differences. People have learned a huge amount about how to retail digitally. So whilst there are still a massive place for bricks and mortar and a massive place for dealer forecourts, I also think that many people have learned how best to leverage digital sources and digital channels now to market their product. And we want to make sure that people continue to build on that. Whether it's buying vehicles digitally from auction houses, using your website better, and being more efficient in the use of your kind of land and your forecourt, better imagery, being able to do that as well as possible. That has been a huge step change through COVID, because of course for many dealers, they couldn't open their forecourts, so they've had to find a different route, and many of them have done it hugely effectively.
I think the future's looking quite bright.
Well, I certainly think that the future looks great for both the independent dealers we work with and also the franchise dealers that we work with. There's a huge amount of energy around electric vehicles. There's a huge amount of energy around the way forward, and by getting the right stock with the right funder and being able to turn that stock quickly, I think there's a huge amount of optimism to be harnessed as we move forward post-COVID.
Liam, that's fantastic news. Very positive from you there. Thank you so much for your time.